Well, back home now, the Liberals have selected their candidate to contest the southern Sydney seat of Cook in a by-election. That's, of course, triggered by the resignation of former Prime Minister Scott Morrison. Simon Kennedy, a former McKinsey consultant and former candidate for Bennelong, won pre-selection last night, and it was quite a convincing win as well. Simon joins me now. Simon, good to see you. You now look like you're going to win one of the safest Liberal seats in the country. Why do you deserve it?
Hey, Laura, thanks for having me on. Look, firstly, I want to acknowledge Scott Morrison for his service. What an outstanding local member he has been for Cook. And look, just the one thing I'd say, I'm not going to treat this like a safe seat. I'm going to be out there listening to the people, and I am this morning. This morning I was at Barefoot on the beach here down at Cronulla, just behind me, and I'm out listening to the people, listening to their issues. And what I heard from them this morning is they want a local member who will listen to them and stand up for what they're feeling right now. And what they told me they're feeling is they are feeling the heat from Labor's cost of living crisis. I had one person up there telling me this morning they're debating which bills to pay. You know, they were promised a $250 reduction in energy prices. Energy prices are up over 30%. They've had 13 interest rate rises in a row, and people are telling me here they're struggling to pay their mortgages. So what I'm going to do, and why I think I deserve it, is I'm going to hold this Albanese government to account for this cost of living crisis they've been put on the people of Cook and all of Australia.
Well, it was $275, by the way. That was what the promise was. And yes, cost of living. We've just seen from the Dunkley by-election a small bruise for Anthony Albanese, I would say. But when you see the results from the Dunkley by-election, it looks like you might be in opposition for some time, Simon.
Oh, look, I'm not going to speculate on that, but I was pleased to see voters move towards the Liberal Party in Dunkley. And for me, what I took out of that is cost of living is hurting people, and people think the country's going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's what I took out of Dunkley. And the reason I took that out of Dunkley is that's what people are telling me. I'm hearing that all around Australia, frankly, and all around Cook.
What are you going to do about the cost of living then? Because some of the complaints have been that there's not enough detail from the Liberal Party.
Well, I think what we are going to do is challenge the Labor government on some of its policies. Enormous pay rises to, you know, lifting the public sector wages cap. That's adding to cost of living. What happened in the ports was adding to cost of living. So if you look at the last two budgets, the average Australian family is $150 a week worse off with the cost of living. So I think we'll be standing up and challenging them on their industrial relations policy, standing them up to them on their ports policy, standing up to them on a budget where now the average Australian family is $150 a week worse off because of Labor's budget. That's what I'll be doing, challenging them on that. They are in government. This is their agenda. There are their policies, and I'll be working hard with Peter Dutton and his shadow cabinet to point out the problems with their policies.
How do you think Shire people are going to like this idea of large-scale nuclear?
Oh, look, large-scale nuclear, there's Lucas Heights just outside of the electorate here. I think when I'm talking to people here, they're used to that issue. They're used to that topic. And what I've heard is they want clean, reliable and cheap power. But they're not seeing cheap. They're not seeing cheap at all. And yes, they're happy with clean, but reliable and cheap has gone out the window. And I worry we've got an ideological government that's not actually looking at outcomes. In this, you know, when cost of living is literally issue number 1, 2 and 3, that I'm hearing, that I'm reading in the papers, in the polls, and we've got 30% going up, I think people are less ideological about it and actually just want outcomes.
I mean, I talked to you this morning, Simon, and you must be kind of conscious of the Liberal Party's women issue. Gwen Chern, I think, was an outstanding candidate. You were up against her. What do you propose to do about the representation of women in the Liberal Party?
Yeah, look, firstly, I agree Gwen is an outstanding candidate. I think she's got a bright future, and hopefully that's in the Liberal Party. The other thing I'd say is, look, I just did a press conference with Jenny Ware down here, another outstanding, strong Liberal candidate. And in the Sutherland Shire area, it's had 50-50 representation, a really strong woman in Jenny and a really strong member in Scott. I know I've also got a Lenny Petanos down here. And I'm very encouraged to see the Liberal Party select a number of very strong candidates. Giselle Captarian is a very good friend of mine, outstanding candidate who has been selected for North Sydney. So I think, look, we'll keep plugging away at that, and I think the Liberal Party But what I'm focused on, and I actually haven't heard that issue raised by anyone I've met over the last, time I've been here, the last time I've been in politics. What I'm hearing now is cost of living. That is issue 1, 2 and 3.
You're an outsider, Simon. Look, I know Cook has a history of parachuting in outsiders, but you haven't quite been parachuted. We'll give you that. But, I think you're a brave man. Are you going to move to the Shire?
Oh, look, we're moving to Woolooware on Friday.
On Friday?
And I just did a press conference.
So you must have been pretty confident
as well on Friday.
Going in.
Oh, no, look. No. Look, I just spoke to Scott, and Scott told me, he said he moved here just the year just before his pre-selection too. And he said, look, once you move here, you never want to leave. And what a beautiful community. Like, look at behind us. Who would want to leave this? I've got a young family. This electorate has those family values. And I've been warmly embraced so far, and I'm looking forward to moving here with my loving wife, my kids, and making Cook our home.
Okay, and you think Peter Dutton can win the next election and you can be in government?
I do. I think Peter's got some real policy differentiation. We have policy differentiation on energy. We have policy differentiation on tax. We have policy differentiation on cost of living. And I think Peter Dutton and the whole Liberal shadow cabinet are taking the fight to Labor. And I think people are telling me out here I was at Barefoot on the beach in Cronulla, they're telling me that cost of living is issue number 1, 2 and 3, and the country's going in the wrong direction. And I think while people are telling me that, I think Peter Dutton has a very strong chance of being the next Prime Minister of Australia.
Now, what are you going to do about housing, though? Because that's a massive component to cost of living. And perhaps there's an element here of you beating the former mayor. There's a bit of NIMBYism that goes on in the Shire. What are you going to do about that?
Oh, look, I don't have any views on the former mayor or NIMBYism, but what I do know is housing is an issue. Housing affordability is an issue, and that's something with 13 interest rate rises in a row, people are saying they can't. I read the other day 49% of people with mortgages are saying they're struggling to get by or just getting by. So I think we've got to start addressing that. Housing has never been more out of reach than for this current generation. And young people here in Cook are saying, where do I find my place? And look, I think Anthony Albanese and the Labor government are not listening to them.
Okay, well, we look forward to seeing you. I mean, you still got to win the by-election, of course, but it looks like a fait accompli at this point. Yeah.
No,
do you think you're going to have a Labor opponent?
I'm taking this as a marginal seat. I am not. Look, I'm not worried about what Labor's doing, but what I'm going to do is treat this as though it's a marginal seat. I'm going to be out there listening to people, hearing their concerns, out there every day, on the train stations, in the parks. If you see me, come up and say g'day, please.
Okay.
But, I'm not worried about Labor at all. The only thing I'm not worried about is the people of Cook and holding Labor to account for
All right. Well, you're a smart guy. We have seen over the last year some Conservatives within the Liberal Party say that you shouldn't chase down the teal seats again. But looking at this, you'd have to think that you'd have to win back some of the teal seats to be in government, wouldn't you?
Oh, look, I think we will have to win back a lot of seats to be in government. And right now, look, we will, and I think we will. And I think Peter's doing a really good message out there to not just the teal seats, but to the outer suburban seats. And I think for the first time, there is Peter has got real policy differentiation between Labor and Liberal. And I think that's what the electorate wants. But for me, I don't want to get carried away with any of that. I have a by-election in front of me. I'm out there listening to the people at Cook, understanding their issues and holding Labor to account. And that is the one thing they have said to me most consistently. There was 300 local pre-selectors last night. And they all said to me, the country's going in the wrong direction. We need someone in there to hold Albo and the Labor government to account, and on cost of living. That is literally, people don't want to talk about anything else. It's almost astounding.
Well, Simon, congratulations to you. As you say, you've still got to win this seat. We look forward to covering that on the night. We'll see you soon.
Look forward to chatting again soon, Laura. Thanks for having me on.